many fantastic teachers from all over Zambia in this workshop. And it's a great opportunity for us to share our ideas, share our experiences. So throughout the workshop, I'm going to be asking you to interact by typing things in the chat or by raising your hand so you can speak at certain moments. This is a great chance for us to learn from one another, share our challenges, see how other people are excelling at implementing CBC. So in the chat, it would be great for people to just maybe tell us where are you from and which subjects do you teach. While you are doing that, I'll tell you a little bit about myself, but in the chat, please just tell us where are you from, which are the subjects that you teach. So as I mentioned, my name is Shiro Chiruma. A reminder, please make sure your microphones are on mute. We'll be able, you'll be able to use when answering questions. So over 15 years of experience in education, and I started off teaching in a tertiary institution, and I was a teacher trainer and a lecturer, helping to train teachers, which was very exciting. And then from there, I then moved into high school teaching, and I specialized in English language and literature, and I've taught thinking skills as well. I've been involved in exams departments. I've been involved in curriculum development, curriculum mapping. I've been involved in developing content for online as well as distance learning. I've taught in South Africa and in Zimbabwe. I've had students in South Africa and Zimbabwe be top in the country in Cambridge exams. So I've had quite extensive work in the classroom with English language and literature, and I've taught several syllabuses as well. So that's been quite exciting. And then currently in my role as a professional development manager, I work to facilitate teacher training workshops and designing teacher training workshops, as well as supporting and mentoring teachers who are developing their teaching through the Cambridge International Certificate and Diploma in Teaching and Learning. And then my academic background, I've studied education, psychological counseling, and business administration. So in the chat, I'm seeing a few comments. So thank you very much. We have Chisomo, who just commented, who is from a teacher in English language and literature, a fellow English language and literature teacher. Welcome, and who is in Lusaka. Then we have Austin as well in Livingston. English language and literature, another English and language and literature teacher. Fantastic. So, throughout, as I'm speaking, please feel free just to tell us where you're from. Alinani as well from Kuala Chemistry. Fantastic. So we're going to be just interacting. And so, as I'm speaking, any ideas that come to mind, anything that comes to mind about what we're talking about, just type it in the comment section. I'll be looking at them throughout the session, as well as other people will be commenting. Other people will then be writing down the fantastic ideas. So let us get started. I'm seeing we also have a physics teacher. So what a lovely, combination of just different people. So the first thing we need to be clear about, and this is something that is encouraged, which is make the learners, in the case of your students, know what the outcomes are supposed to be. Therefore, by the time we get to the end, the learners are able to reflect on whether they have achieved the outcomes. And then it equips the learners to really think about their learning. It equips them to then know that I need to follow up with my teacher, because the teacher said I'm supposed to learn this, but I know absolutely nothing. So throughout this workshop, I'll just be trying to model certain things and just giving us reminders, because all of this is actually part of what we are aiming to develop and is part of the CBC. So this idea of OBE, CBC, these acronyms, we throw out these acronyms, but what do they mean? So in our workshop, and by the end of this workshop, you will be able to explain the shift from outcomes-based education, outcomes-based education, and that will be referred to as OBE in some of the slides. We're shifting from that, which people also, call the old way, to the new way, which is the competency-based. What are you competent in? What can you do? And that we call that the competency-based curriculum, CBC, at secondary level. Then we want to identify the key competencies in the learners. So we are being guided by the Zambian curriculum's framework. So everything we're talking about, you'll be able to do further research by looking at that framework. So we are identifying and developing the key competencies. We want to integrate the cross-cutting issues into the subjects. And these cross-cutting issues are national issues. And as teachers, you're going to be a part of, helping with uh, uh, pushing the national agenda. So that's quite a privilege. It's exciting. It can be overwhelming. So we'll discuss all of that. Then we want to understand our competencies. And from the high school teacher perspective, as a high school teacher myself, I know whenever there's such a change, one of the key things we always think of is to be doing all these things. And I trust that by the end of this, I'll be able to allay any of your concerns, to answer any of your concerns. Then the good news is you're not alone. There's the Cambridge Prosper, which is this new and fantastic resource for learners, for the teachers to help you to actually deliver all this information. So looking back at the chat, we've got people from Lusaka, Jacqueline, who teaches special needs, Kachama as well, teacher of maths. So fantastic, just a wide variety of subjects. We've got Joseph as well, biology, agriculture, fantastic. So let's just begin by having a little bit more interaction in our chat. When you hear this idea of CBC, if you had to rate yourself in terms of your understanding, 1 to 10, where are you feeling? How are you feeling? How have you started to understand or even to implement this, if you have started? So let's just rate ourselves from a scale of 1 to 10 in the chat. Just put your number, and then I'll hopefully remember to ask you again by the end of our session. Just see, have you learned something? So in our chat, it's the way you feel, the way you understand this idea of CBC. So please rate yourself from 1 to 10, and we'll be able to just see, where is everyone? Where do we feel? I see a 3 out of 10. Thank you. A 5 out of 10. So by the time we are done, we're hoping to push some of those 5 at least to 6s and 7s and 8s. Ideally at 10, but baby steps, we will get there. So 4s, 7s, 3s, 5s. So by the end of all of this, we really want to make sure that you are feeling comfortable, you're feeling confident, you know where to go. We just have 2 hours, and that's how long our slot will be, 2 hours. But from this session, you will be able to know your next steps in terms of what you do. Excellent. So more numbers. Thank you so much for your participation. So please just keep glancing at the chat. You'll be able to see, all the different people from like Lazarus from Lusaka, another teacher in maths, 7s and 6s and 3s out of 10s. Thank you very much for your feedback. It's good to know I'm not alone and that you can hear me. So this is going to be our general guide in terms of what we're going to be getting through. So we want to understand what this shift is. Why are we moving to CBC? What are these key competencies and how do they fit in with everything? What are these cross-cutting issues and how will we integrate them into our teaching? And what does that mean to integrate them? Then how do we assess them? How does the Cambridge Prosper, how does this support you? And then we're going to be concluding everything. So let's jump straight into it. So understanding what this shift is, what are we talking about when we're talking about CBC? So from OBE, outcomes-based education, to CBC, CBC. So on the screen here is one way of looking at it. Outcomes-based education, the old way of doing things. Very content for teacher-centered instruction, knowledge accumulation. And these are all positive things. We look at them and we say, these are positive things. Why are we moving from these? So as we are talking about the change, we are progressing, we are adding, we are moving based on research. Content driven means you are mainly focused on covering the content. And as we know, high school teaching, we've got those exams where there's all this content we need to cover. But what we have noticed from all the research is too often teachers end up only focusing on finishing what needs to be done. And unfortunately, the actual learning can sometimes fall by the wayside, meaning that we end up not being really concerned about have the learners actually learned, but we're focusing on finishing the syllabus. Especially in high school, there are exams. So all we want to do is for the kids to be able to pass their exams. But isn't this one of the biggest issues we've been facing with education, which is people start saying, is what we're teaching relevant? Our learners don't have many skills when they end up leaving the schools. But this is actually the solution. What we are teaching is relevant for now, for today. And we cannot just have our students only able to pass exams. And I'm sure many of us have even had experiences like this. Even in my own life, I know I've written some exams where I did extremely well. Ask me a week after my exam, a month after my exam, and I can tell you very limited or a very limited amount or nothing. And we really start to wonder, what are we doing, in our classes? So education is shifting to really thinking, what are we doing? What can the learners do apart from memorize and cram in exams? And this is why this change is necessary. As you start to think about this change, you start to realize it isn't just optional. The world is changing. The world has changed. The future world, we don't even know what that will look like. So the skill the learners need to have is beyond memorizing and cramming. And that's what, if you're too focused on exams, that's the skill you teach them. But beyond that, so problem solving, figuring out solutions, adapting to new situations, you can't have that when the instruction is too focused on passing exams. Teacher-centered instruction, this is how we were all taught. And look at us, we've made it, right? We've made it in life. But the world has changed. The learners have changed. How many times do we say, oh, these kids, they can't do this. These kids, they can't do that. So to meet that need and to keep equipping these learners, this teacher-centered approach is, I am the teacher, you are the learner. I have the knowledge, you listen, and you follow my instructions, which will equip you to write exams. This will take you only so far. The world has changed, the learners have changed, and now we need to realize that accessing information, if a learner goes and uses AI the night before your lesson on photosynthesis, for example, they might actually end up in a space where they know way more than you. So what does that mean for us? So this means as teachers, we are still relevant. We are still needed in the classroom, but we're needing to change how we are needed, how we're going to, teach these students that we have. And part of that, we're going to learn or discuss and explore when it comes to changing to be a more learner-centered teacher. We're moving away from just accumulating knowledge because information is so readily accessible. Any topic, a child can quickly go into AI, Siri can speak in their ear and they have the answer. But is that going to equip them from life beyond school? Will that equip them in their own life? What about the nation? What does what does Zambia need? And is what we are teaching in terms of just memorizing, will it suffice? So I'm hoping I'm starting to build this argument as to why you must change, why you can't resist it, why one's mind needs to transform to this is actually what's best for the learners. So let me see how I can adapt. And this doesn't mean overnight. This doesn't mean everything is going to be, perfect, but it means start the journey. So just a reminder, please may we keep our microphones muted. There is a bit of feedback. So please just check that your microphone is muted. Thank you. So then what is CBC? So CBC, competency based. So think really of it of what can the learner do? If the learner is faced with skills, it's all about, yes, they need to, so there is merit. So we aren't saying the previous way useless or anything like that. We are saying we are evolving, we are adding, we are developing beyond that. So we now need to make sure that the learners have the knowledge, but they aren't stopping at memorizing. They aren't stopping at cramming for an exam. But from there, they are developing the skills of how to work out the answer, how to get to the solution, etc. So can they actually apply the skills? And one of the ways that is tested is when they're given a similar circumstance, but with a few different variables, are they able to realize, oh, the concept of balancing this equation, those principles can also work for this other different type of equation. Or the way we analyze this text, it also works for that other text. And that's what we are realizing, and that's what those who have done research have told us, that students can be taught something, memorize something, give them, change a few things, and they say, ma'am, I don't know what's going on. So it means we haven't equipped them with the confidence, with the skills to be able to tap into prior knowledge and then use that as a springboard to be able to then work out the new situation. And that's what we're now going to be doing. So it's very learner centered because the learners now have access to information. The learners now also, we are wanting to develop the ability to think, the ability to question and to ask questions. We also want to develop the ability to link prior knowledge with what we're currently doing. So when we see active learning, many of us will go, oh no, now I must make my kids run. How do I do that in my small classroom? I've got 80 learners. So we're going to really explore how active learning, it isn't just activities. That is definitely a great part of it because research has told us learners really learn more by doing actions. Do the experiment as opposed to memorizing the experiment. The more they do, the more they are likely to retain something. But active learning also means actively constructing meaning. So they become part of the learning process. So the teacher becomes a facilitator and not just the fountain of wisdom. So it means so we're teaching the same content, but we're changing how we teach this content. Then we are also teaching skills, attitudes, and values. And if you think of it, as teachers, we spend so much time with these learners for the majority of their day, they're with us. So, what an opportunity to actually be able to also shape their attitude, shape their values. As teachers, we now know that we are psychologists, we are part-time parents, we are counselors, we are doctors, we are so much. So it is a privilege, but this is an opportunity for us to be more intentional in our lesson planning to actually implement attitudes, values. And this is what the Zambian curriculum framework wants. So there really is, to some extent, no way around it. So, for example, if someone were trying to move from OBE to CBC, one example would be if, for example, you are teaching photosynthesis. You can just say, write on the board, give them all the equations and the formulas, and this is what you need to know. Then the kids just copy it, memorize it, and they're done. It can work. It has worked. But is there more we can do? And that's the conversation we're having today. No, so why not, have the conversation with the learners of why do you think, to the learners, why do you think plants die in the dark? Can we design an experiment to see why they die? So now you're helping them to design an experiment. Then they conduct the experiment. Then they discuss the experiment. Then they explain their findings. Then they explain the reliability of it. Then they connect it to real life. Then they think about in Zambia, how does this apply to agriculture? How does this apply to, even in their own backyard? Where should they maybe be planting certain vegetables? Should they maybe be more in the light? Now they're problem solving. So as you are seeing, there is one way, the old way of doing it, but there is more. And that's what this conversation is about. So my encouragement to you is as we go forward, we don't want to really going to together be brainstorming with one another. How are we doing it? What are we because many of you have started implementing CBC and we want to see how other people are doing. So one of the ways, one of the strategies that we can use is this idea that is called think, pair, share. It's an activity that you can do with your classes. Allow a student to think on their own. They discuss in pairs. They share with everyone else. So this is an activity that can actually work with a bigger class. So big classes are one of our challenges as teachers, especially when you're pushing to get the content done because there's exams. So we don't like group work for, valid reasons. But in terms of what CBC needs, this is actually a very good strategy. So think, pair, share. So the benefit of such strategies is you are able to actually assess each child. You're able to involve each child. You're able to make each child think, and then you're able to make children realize their different opinions. Then you're able to integrate, like now they're working in groups. Now they're learning how to share, how to share their ideas, how to listen to others, how to adjust their ideas, how to adapt to new ideas. This case, you won't have to participate. So let's practice this. So in our case, we won't be impaired, but we want to adapt this activity. So think of a lesson you taught recently. And I want you to think, was it more OBE or CBC? Why? And if it wasn't CBC, how could you make it more CBC? So let's have that honest conversation. So I'll give you a bit of time, and then I'll ask for maybe just 3 people to give us their takes. So I'll ask 3 people to share and unmute their mics when you put your hand up. But for everyone else, you can be typing your answers, just short and brief. So a lesson you taught recently, was it more OBE or was it more CBC? Why? And how could you make it more CBC? So I'll give you just 3 minutes. If you have your answer, you can just put your hand up and I'll unmute your mic and speak. Okay, so 1 more minute, then please maybe have some answers. So Gift will go first when it's time. Thank you, Gift. I'll let you know when you can speak. So the question is on the screen. So you will speak. Thank you. Just 1 more hand would be great. The rest, you can type your response. Thank you. So we now have our 3. I trust we all have had enough time to think. So thank you. So we are answering the question that's green. If you think of a lesson you taught recently, was it more OBE or CBC and why? So we'll start off with Gift. Please may you tell us what you think.
Yeah, so I had a lesson in ICT, and it was merely on the booting sequence. Are you getting me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. Please carry on.
Yeah, so we had a lesson in ICT. It was merely on with Form 1s on the booting sequence. That is the ICT. So I think I merely taught outcome based, because my presentation was actually looking at the booting sequence. It never posed any problem for learners to solve. I never started it with a hook to get some answers and ideas from the learners. And later I realized that this lesson was actually proper outcome based. And later I started thinking of the booting sequence that starts with powering on, and then you have the ROM, the CPU, the RAM, the hard drive or the solid state drive, and then it actually goes to the computer powering on. And how I thought it would be made more CBC was to give them a screen that had some frown face on it, that would show that the computer was actually failing to start, and probably now ask learners from there what could have been the problem in the booting sequence, so that they start by solving the problems and tasking them to think and solve the problem. And probably in pairs, they would be discussing why did we have this from picture or screen? What would have been the problem? And from there, we would now realize the booting sequence, and it would be better for them because they would have now linked the booting sequence to reality of what happens in most computers when they fail to start. There must be a problem.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. ICT, people are using C. It can be done. Thank you. Next person. Iso, please can you give us your
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. Carry, you can go ahead.
Okay. I'm also a teacher of ICT.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
I recently conducted a class on networking at the class of grade 8 Form 1s now, that I asked to play the parts of the devices. So this lesson was specifically focused on two devices, the switch and the hub, and how they work in networking. So one student played the hub, the other one played the switch. And since it was the concluding class of the term, I asked them to send a message to a friend or to the entire class, depending on which device they used to send the message through. So they came to understand how these devices work and how they can be used in big organizations like banks, so that if one day they came to own their own organizations, they would know just which devices to implement. So I feel like this lesson was between OBE and CBC, because there were practical things that would have been done to make them actually practice connecting these devices. So,
Oh, fantastic. No, that sounds fun. I wish I had teachers like you, or I want to be teachers like you. So for me, just listening to those two examples, and then Mercy will be next. But as you can see, there, there are ways of doing it which aren't going to completely, make you become someone else. So doing what you've always been doing. And this is such great encouragement, which is when you actually think about some of the things you're already doing, many of you are actually implementing CBC. So there's no need to be overwhelmed. It's something we're already doing. We'll just finish off with Mercy. Thank you, Mercy. Please, can you give us your contribution?
Hello, good morning. Are you able to get me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. I had an opportunity to observe a lesson as an standard officer at one of the secondary schools. It was a lesson in physics on citizenship. The teacher was more of a competence-based and outcome-based, where she engaged the learners in some pair work and group work, and there was a discussion where learners were coming out so in a good manner, such that I was comparing our way of teaching when it was then, where we could have a lot of writing notes on the board and in our books, with what was happening right now. So I can say that at least CBC is taking place in the class.
Hey, excellent. Thank you. So thank you all for those who have contributed. And there are more examples, and there'll be room for more discussions as well. So if I haven't, listened to your contribution now, we'll definitely make time for that later. But thank you very much. So let's just be reading in the chat as well. Lazarus used CBC for solving logarithmic equations. Then we've also had a competition on articles. So this is something that you can do and you have been doing to some extent, but now we want to be more intentional. So the shift is because secondary graduates lacked workplace ready skills. So ends up almost being, a disaster in many, in many cases, that the knowledge they have, the confidence they have is in just recalling information and not so much applying it to work, to workspaces. 21st century competencies are something that we need to equip our learners with. The world that they are going to be entering, their working world, is a world that we don't even know what's going to be required. So the information that they will need is information that maybe is even yet to be discovered. But what we can equip them with are the skills to think, to analyze, to apply, to adapt. And this is also in alignment with global education trends, and it's preparing them for tertiary education and work. I'm sure we all know in certain places where, the schools at secondary level, they get extremely good results. But once they enter tertiary education, those learners don't do well. So we'll be doing our learners a great disfavor if we end up in this scenario where we only equip them to just pass our exam. And this will also support the Vision 2030 development goals. So we want the Zambian students to be, right up there and be able to uplift, Zambia, and to be able to make a global contribution because we have taught them the skills. And the reality is our learners will be left behind. If we do not apply all of this, that's what it ends up being. Our learners will be equipped for the world we grew up in, the world we are maybe in now, but in their world, they will lack skills. So we would be doing them a great disfavor. So it prepares, at the bottom of the screen there, it says, it prepares Form 4 leavers for multiple pathways. So not only do they know information, but they're able to adapt and to apply it. And if you really think of it, throughout secondary, if all the learners are being challenged to think, to develop an opinion, to tap into prior learning, like they will discover their strengths, they will have the confidence to be able to be out there, and doing, all kinds. But it all begins with moving them beyond this idea that all they need to do is to memorize. Okay, so I trust I have motivated this idea enough, but just to emphasize, there is no going back at this stage. This is where the world is going, so we need to adapt. So what we are needing to focus on is really thinking, how can we do this efficiently with our limitations, with our resources, with our strengths? How can we do this, to the best of our ability? So a big part of all of this is this thinking of, there are key competencies that learners need to have. So these aren't different subjects, but these are, yes, there's the knowledge, but what are the skills that the learners also need to have? What must they be able to do? So what this means is you are now going to be integrating and just being intentional about developing all these different aspects, because this is what is going to be a part of creating that Zambian student that needs to that is going to change the world. The ones that are usually the quite prominent ones as well are communication, collaboration, creativity, and innovation. So the first one being critical thinking. It's one of those things we hear a lot about, and something that many of us may know or may have heard of. So let me just start by posing this question to, just one or two of you. On the screen, it says, critical thinking, and it has a definition there, which we will read. But can you give us, what is your understanding? What is critical thinking? What do you know? What is critical thinking? It's one of the big ones that really encompasses what we're trying to develop in our learners. But what does it actually mean? Any people have any ideas? What is this critical thinking? Critical thinking. How would you define critical thinking? So we can type in the chat as well, but how would you define critical thinking? Gift, is that raised hand? If it is, please go ahead.
Yeah, according to my understanding, it's actual reasoning. Um, you know, giving an explanation with a proper reason that you can really defend, that makes sense. Not just saying, but you have to reason. I mean, you have to think and give your expression with proper reasoning that are defendable and that have logic.
Thank you. That is a textbook definition. That is really, really fantastic. And in the chat, we have Ngosa said, critical thinking is thinking that solves problems. And then Chisomo said, critical thinking is the ability to analyze information carefully and questions and assumptions and to question assumptions and make well-reasoned judgments instead of simply accepting things. Fantastic, and thank you for those, really insightful definitions. So, we really have to ask ourselves that in our lessons, the way we have been teaching, are we developing? And I like that word developing because it means bit by bit. It's like a long-term, it's like an aim, a long-term goal. And it's through the different lessons. So these key competencies are something which needs to be integrated into all our lessons. Ideally, in every single lesson, you'll do at least the 4 C's, but you can just at least 2 to 3 try to develop these. So critical thinking is you need to try, in your lessons to encourage the learners to analyze, to evaluate, to apply, to problem solve, and that's what we are trying to develop. A learner who actually does something with information. We want to teach our learners to actually do with to speak, clearly with others, to be able to express your. And one key thing I really find interesting about communication is listening. Active listening is a part of communication. So in our lessons, are we encouraging our learners to listen to others when they speak, to be able to hear the key parts from other people? Collaboration. Wouldn't this world be a better place if people could work together? But it's interesting. It's a skill that must be taught. It isn't natural. It isn't automatic. So when we are showing our learners how to collaborate, they're able to work effectively in teams with respect, respecting other people's opinions and other people's ideas. And we want to teach creativity and innovation. And that means generating, which means solving problems of future, critical thinking. One way to practice this critical thinking is just even with questioning, just asking them questions. Ask them how, ask why. Other aspects or the key competencies that we want to develop is this analytical thinking. Now, analytical thinking tells us about, are you able to really break down information, showing how different things are connected? We want to teach digital literacy. Can the learners use technology effectively? Can they use their phones and computers responsibly? Do they know how to use AI? Do they know how to check that some things are fake or some things aren't real? What about emotional intelligence? Are they aware of their own feelings, other people's feelings? And how do they manage that in the classroom situation? We want to teach things like entrepreneurship, which is our learners really able to think, and come up with solutions that can help them, that can benefit them. Financial literacy. Do they know about saving? Do they know that you must earn your money? You must work to earn something. Citizenship. Do they know that as a citizen of a nation, you have responsibilities participating in civil and social life? Do they understand what's happening in society, what's happening in culture, the political issues? Environment. Can they be responsible? This is their country. Anything that happens in Zambia affects them and generations to come. And the other one is what? So these are key competencies. These are key things that you need to integrate. So once again, this integration can honestly just be a conversation that you have with your learners where you speak about of these things in any of your lessons and you integrate it. And a big part of that is maybe using is as you are discussing something, you then question where you develop something about it. Let's just have some examples from just one or two of us. How have we been integrating these key competencies? How have you been developing these competencies? So maybe an example, because I trust you have been. And even if you haven't been intentional, you will be surprised to see that you've actually been developing these. So on the screen, some or even the 4 C's, maybe just one from 1 or 2, we've been developing our key competencies. How do you integrate it in your subject? You might have an example of a particular topic and how you end up integrating key competencies. Can we have maybe just 1 or 2 people? How have you integrated? How are you developing key competencies in your lessons? Thank you. We have Gift. So Gift will start. It'd be great for other people as well. How do you go about developing any of the key competencies? Gift, please contribute. Everyone else, you can also add in the chat. Gift, you can go ahead. Your mic is muted. Gift, your mic is, I'll just give you one more chance in case that was a mistake, but Gift, do you want to contribute about how?
Yeah, I wanted to give an example of a topic, a subject that I don't teach for deeper understanding.
Yes.
Recently, we had a case in the Eastern Province where a child in Usangazi actually committed suicide. A grade 3 learner actually committed suicide for actually getting position 3 in a class. And I was almost saying we have lost it because CBC can provide such solutions. For example, when you are teaching a topic called death and suffering, there is an issue of emotional intelligence there where you can teach learners or help learners to develop proper emotional intelligence on critical thinking. Why should I do this? And again, even on the part of the child, the child developing resiliency, being so strong in the toughest time. And you as an RIE teacher, as you facilitate such learners, by all means you try, such lessons, you try by all means to develop resilience that will actually culminate into emotional intelligence, in critical thinking of a learner. Why should I do this? Why should I do this? And that is going to come in. We have a lot of cases of suicide actually just in Eastern Province. When I was trying to get some research, a lot of people have ended up killing themselves. I was saying, oh my God, if CBC came earlier, the way of approaching matters in class, issues in class, lessons in class, they should go in a way that we integrate these key competencies, just such as analytical thinking and emotional intelligence. They will really help the world at large. Thank you.
Thank you, Gift. And I think that is such, such a sobering, a sobering reality for us, which is, sometimes these things just seem like things we have to do, but there is a bigger picture, which is we are teaching people. And by implementing and moving to CBC, we are now having a more holistic approach where we really are developing the learner. So I think, Gift really managed to sum it up, which is, some of the challenges these learners are facing, we cannot anticipate them, and there'll be more challenges in the future. But when the learners have purpose of knowing that, they matter as a citizen of, of Zambia, that their decisions in their community will either help, or destroy things in the nation. It gives them a sense of national pride. It gives them a sense of, responsibility of knowing what's going on, of caring, of problem solving. So thank you, Gift, for that. So what what does this mean for us, as teachers? But it is being intentional, because this is the challenge we see, which is to actually achieve this, one must be intentional. So it means as you're planning your lesson, maybe really consider, in maybe the course of a month, in different lessons, have the different skills that you are intentionally developing. So is there something about digital literacy that I can talk about in my lesson? So every single subject, there is room to implement this, and we will be speaking about that and I'll be asking for examples a little bit later on. Okay, so here are just getting a little bit into, we want subject specific examples now. So we want some subject specific examples, and we'll just focus on the 4 C's. So a bit of a pop quiz, a bit of a test in your own mind. What are the 4 C's? Can you remember the 4 C's? In the chat, if we can just type the 4 C's, just so we make sure we're all on the same page. So they are key competencies, but they are 4, which we really emphasize. What are these 4 C's? Can we have a few people typing in the chat? The 4 C's, some of the key competencies that we want to focus on. Who can remember, and who can remember first? Communication. Thank you, Chisimba. So we've got 3 more to go. So we're integrating communication into our lessons. We're integrating collaboration. Thank you, Gift. And then we also had critical thinking. Thank you, Mukuka. Thank you for that. There's 1 that's missing. So the cooperation would be along the lines of collaboration. There's 1 more, the other C. Before I give you your answer, excellent. So we got the answer. Thank you for to Kachama, to Dixon. So it's the creativity and innovation, the creativity and innovation. So I want us to try to be, so as I'm going to be explaining and giving some examples, I would really like you to give subject specific examples, and we'll hopefully try to have 1 example from each of these categories. So in our science, so we're thinking about that communication, that collaboration, that creativity, and really, that creativity and innovation. So we're thinking about our 4 C's. In sciences, you can design experiments, analyze data, presenting findings. That's all part of developing your 4 C's. But especially in science, to a large extent, is the 4 C's over. That's 1 way to develop your 4 C's. Language in languages, so with our languages as well, even we're speaking about any languages learners are learning, they can be developed 4 C's. So examples being in literary analysis. They can analyze whatever they're reading. When they're writing persuasive text, having debates, you are able to develop 4 C's. In maths, when you're teaching them problem solving strategies or explaining solutions, it's another good way to teach your 4 C's. In your social sciences, our histories, our geos, etc. We are able to also give them projects, research, presentations. So with that bit of insight, can we just have some examples? If you think of a particular topic in your lesson, and then please tell us how you develop any 1 or 2 of the 4 C's. So whichever subject you teach, so hopefully we'll have 1 from languages, 1 from maths, 1 from at least 1 of the sciences. How have you been developing? How have you been developing the 4 C's in your subject? Because that's what we want, to have examples and ideas. How have you been developing the 4 C's so we can be helping each other? Dixon, thank you. How have you been developing the 4 C's? Dixon, you can unmute your mic, or Kachama, Dixon, you can unmute your mic.
Hello.
Hello, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so for example, in mathematics, when we talk about, I can give an example of a topic called sets, where you have the information, where a survey is conducted, you want to find out, for example, in a class, the type of food the learners like, for example, like. So you can have the information. So there we want to see if the learners are able to communicate the information into, for example, visible diagrams, for example, Venn diagrams. So there we want to see communication, and also the critical thinking comes in where they can think properly. How can they present this information on the Venn diagram? So that needs the proper analysis of the data they have. They need the proper reasoning. They also need collaboration. So we put all those things together. We are enabled to communicate. They are able to use communication. They are able to use the creativity, for example, in drawing the diagrams, the oval shapes, and then they are able to use the also the other aspect is the critical thinking, which I've already explained. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. That sounds like a fun lesson as well. Sounds like a fun lesson. Jesse, please, can we have one example from you, Jesse? Jesse, your hand was up.
Okay, so I teach geography, and one of the first topics for Form 1 actually gives a lot of opportunities to apply the 4 T's that we have. For example, when we're looking at the topic of the solar system, there's a lot of critical thinking that goes on. There's a lot of communication, collaboration, and creativity and innovation, especially when I give them a project. I remember there was a time I gave my class a project to come up with a solar system, a mini solar system, so to say. So they were able to, in their small group, think critically of how they'll come up with the sizes for the sun and the different planets. And for them to succeed, they had to, of course, communicate, express their ideas, and they needed to work together for that. And then that also included a lot of creativity and innovation.
Thank you. Okay, so it can be done. It can be done, and people are doing it. That's a fantastic example. I will just hear one more from Mr. Mateo. Just a quick explanation, please. Thank you. Mr. Mateo, your hand was up. You can unmute your mic.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay, so say for example, we are solving problems on statistics, and we have a data set, right? You can ask them, what does it mean telling us the data set? Or you can ask them, could there be can we develop a better model for us to to better understand the data set? So like you take them to the max, apart from what we have, would there anything they can think about to help us understand the data set more?
Thank you. No, that's it. So thank you for all those answers and for those suggestions. And that's what we are trying to do, which is we're trying to show you that this can be done. So there are many other subjects we teach, or they can fit in these categories. So even if your subject isn't here, you will still be able to integrate the 4 C's. You'll still be able to integrate these key competencies. So we really want to encourage you that it is being done. It can be done. And one pattern I was seeing is it's in how you pose the work. Instead of just starting by, this is what it is, here's the solution, copy the work, learn the work, you actually are facilitating the learning by asking the questions. So it can really be done, and people are doing it. So just to move on to the next section. So we focus on our competencies, which we are integrating. Then we are now focusing on the cross-cutting themes. And these are some of the national issues, the things that have been identified as if these are developed, if these are discussed. And I remember what Gift mentioned about the issue of suicide. We'll be able to actually see that in these issues, which are plaguing the nation, that if make time to discuss these things, our learners will be better off. And as I even read this, I'm also challenged, and I also even think to myself, if I had been taught in this manner, how would this have impacted me? And when I reflect on this, it's just positive, 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 positive. I would have had the confidence to form my opinion. I would have had the confidence to question things. I would have had the confidence to know that I can be a problem solver. So it's something we really need to prioritize. So once you are integrating the competencies, you will now, and you should now also integrate these cross-cutting themes. So once again, not new subjects, but you're integrating them. And one of the easy ways to integrate these aspects is through your examples. Pick examples which are relevant to the context, relevant to what the learners are going through, relevant to what is trending. But be intentional in that over your term, over your year with your lesson, you've covered as many of these as you can. So I'm going to just read these cross-cutting things. We'll find ways to integrate. So once again, not every single one in every single lesson, but you'll be strategic as you know the curriculum and you'll space them out. So we will integrate life skills and health education, gender, governance, corruption, human rights and freedoms, national values and principles, entrepreneurship, education, HIV and AIDS, environmental health and population management, climate change education, health and nutrition, drug and substance abuse, mental health, social and emotional learning, financial education, special and inclusive education, sustainable development, and digital literacy. These are the things which have been identified as going to be imperative in building the nation. So I'm going to give us a 5-minute break. And in that break, I want you to be thinking about your subject and thinking about how you integrate these things. So your subject, how do you integrate these cross-cutting themes? So we're going to have just a 5-minute break. I encourage you to stop your half of the session. So at 4 minutes past the hour, we are going to carry on, but just be thinking with these cross-cutting themes, just one example of what topic do you teach where you find ways to integrate these elements. So 5-minute break. So please all be back at 4 minutes past the hour. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you managed to stand up something. It is important. I'm seeing a hand that is up. Mr. Mateo, is that a hand up or it's from the previous discussion? Is that a hand up? Okay, so I'll just carry on, and then I'll ask the contributions, but I will carry on with a question I gave you. But let me just give you a bit more information. Then we want to hear your feedback. So these cross-cutting themes must be integrated into all your lessons. It's not as hard as it sounds. So we want to encourage each other by giving examples of how we have been doing it. So once you know these cross-cutting themes, you spread them out throughout your term, throughout the year, to ensure that you are integrating them into your lesson. The common ways, if you were to almost give you ideas before we get our specific example, some of the ways to think of this, of how to integrate it, is through the actual content. And I'm sure we'll have some examples where you are including examples which fit and suit the natural context. So even if it's in maths and you are talking about problem solving, you can bring in something in the nation that has an issue, and then applying the same concept, the learners will be able to problem solve, and then you'll be able to link with one of the themes. So you are linking the competencies, the problem solving, and then you are using an example from the themes. So when you are, for example, using examples that naturally include the themes, so for your fractions, for example, you can use food sharing. If you're talking about percentages, you can maybe talk about discounts in shops to see, is it really a discount? What does that discount mean? You can talk about, for example, like if you're doing maths in business, in maths or business, you're doing like rates and percentages. You can have a look at interest rates and the rates banks give. So real life skills being integrated as your examples. So through the actual content, through the activities, you design activities that allow them to discuss any of the themes. Then through your discussions, you ask questions about things, open-ended questions, you link it to the themes. And even through modeling of the value. So you as the teacher, you can model respect, you can model active listening. So the teacher is going to play a big role. So if I now just go back to, these cross-cutting themes, a big reminder for us as teachers is we must now be educated in these topics. And we must also now, when we are approaching these topics, we want to come with the right education. And we want to be sensitive. I think of, for example, this very important topic like of, theme of HIV and AIDS. We want to teach, respect and acceptance and support, and educate learners where they get tested, how to get treatment, how to encourage and support others on this journey. These are things we are all, living with, so it's so the role of the teacher is get the skills, equip yourself so you're able to really have constructive conversations about these. So the question I pose to you, and hoping you've now had a bit of time. So this is an example of an activity that people could do in pairs, but we are going to do them, we'll do this individually. So this activity is, in your subject, please can you just tell us, and how would you integrate the themes now? So on the screen, I'll put just the second slide of the themes, but maybe you can remember the others. So in your subject, which topic, what thing are you teaching where you think any of these themes could naturally, and that's the thing, naturally be integrated? So please, may I have a few volunteers? I think we have Kachama have ideas. So in yours, can you think of a topic, in your subject, a topic, and how you would link these themes? Thank you very much, Dixon. Kachama Dixon.
Okay. As you already alluded to, you mentioned something like arithmetic, the change, the discounts in shops. So we have in Form 2 mathematics, we have a topic called financial arithmetic. There, where we teach the children about we even go as far as the government, how the bonds, the nominal values, the shares, how they can buy the shares, how they can do investments. Yes, and also we have also when we are teaching about graphs, anything relating to graphs. So where we have these mathematical softwares, e.g. the Desmos and the GeoGebra, where you can give learners activities and they can use these softwares and they are able to come up with perfect graphs. And also on climate change, how we can incorporate it or rather integrate it is whereby you can ask questions where learners are they able to formulate like models in order to determine, for example, the levels of carbon dioxide in the next T years. So all those we are able to integrate it.
Wow.
This is how we can integrate these years in mathematics.
Thank you. Thank you. So it can be done. And I think with every subject, there's some of these themes that are natural, that are easier. So for every single subject, the challenge is going to be how are we going to integrate some of the ones that don't seem to link. So, but that's the challenge, to find a way. Okay, we'll have Deborah and then Gift. Thank you. Deborah, you can go ahead and then we'll move on. Thank you, Deborah.
So I teach civic education, and there is a topic that we had some time back, citizenship. So there is a part that said, how do citizens behave, or how can they contribute at home, in school, and in the nation at wide? So it was easy to integrate environmental health and pollution management, because we're able to ask, as a student in school, what can you do to contribute to the well-being of the school?
Wow.
And some of the things that came out in the discussions were things like picking up litter. So we actually did an outdoor activity where we went around the school, picked up litter.
That's amazing.
So it was easy for us to incorporate this one, and they understood why it's essential and how it's important as a student, a citizen in the country, to make sure that we manage our environment.
Thank you. Wow, that's fantastic. Gift, and then I see Davis will be the last one. So Gift and then Davis, then we should be done. Thank you. Gift, please take it away. We'll just keep our responses brief. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will again pick a realistic example of a video clip that is trending in Malawi, where there is this girl who is 14 years and she has been sexually abused by a lot of people, elderly men, and such. That's a cross-cutting issue that is falling under human rights and freedom. And as this teacher is teaching civic education or social studies at primary, there must be some passages that depict such kind of real scenarios. And to what extent what should we do? Where should the girl go? Because the girl is just actually complaining for her. She's innocently answering questions on social media. And that, if we integrate that, the girl, after being sexually abused by people, would actually know where to go. Thank you.
And so important. These issues are happening there amongst us. So we need to, get into this conversation, we're educators, we can really equip ourselves to help these learners. Thank you for that. And the last one, Davis, please may you add your contribution.
Thank you so much as well. I would also want to pick on social and emotional learning coupled with drug and substance abuse in this era where we have so much serious moral decay. So I would use a reference to one of the biology topics under substance abuse. Yeah, there I would say the best is to mention to the learners really what the adverse dangers that come with moral decay are, as opposed to it being looked at as something that is very less negative impacting as the social society happens to put it, because our learners happen to be at a serious cliff where they're likely to fall off, because almost everyone, including adults, are telling them that these drugs are the only ways through which they can get over stress and other social problems. So the best is to pinpoint to them the real challenges and the real dangers that are hidden underneath the short-term usage of these life-wrecking things. That's what I would say definitely there.
No, thank you.
Hello?
Thank you. So thank you. No, thank you so much. No, so that's it. That every subject we can find a way. So even gender. In maths you're teaching proportion, you're teaching percentages. You can bring in gender and say the nation is hoping to improve the number of women in parliament, or the number of the ratio in this particular industry. Why do you think that the government would bother with trying to bring equity, or trying to bring equality? So it's just a conversation. So tactfully done. It's not a waste of the learning time. It's a reminder that we are developing the whole child, and not just for exams. Okay, so there are these cross-cutting themes. There are many activities, and in the chat there are some really, really good suggestions. There was one on English as well. There was just a lot that learners that we can actually be learning from one another. So I encourage you, if you have any ideas, you just keep popping them in there, because there were some people who were saying initially at the beginning of our workshop that they don't really remember much, or they don't know much about what to do. Maybe for some people it's impossible. So those of you who have more experience, I really do encourage you to keep adding to our chat. So it can be done, and it doesn't have to be so consuming, just so impossible. That's something to remember. So on the screen, here are some other examples of specific subject integration. So in biology, you can explore, when you're looking at the concepts of health, reproduction, etc. You can really bring in that HIV awareness. In chemistry, when you're talking about chemicals, you can bring in the environment and then speak about if once they learn about a particular chemical, if a company is releasing such a chemical into the water, what is that going to do to our water? And you can bring in environmental things. We need water. What about citizenship? So you're able to, even in chemistry, bring in pollution. And on the screen, it says, like when you're teaching acids. Maths and financial literacy, you can bring in budgeting and investments and calculations. I mean, imagine when we were at school, if we were being taught about, budgeting and investing, just, who could we have been? And just our minds, we would have just known about the possibilities for us as Africans without only just learning for the exams. In English, with gender, as you're analyzing how gender is represented, you can link it to, what do you think about that? Then maybe link it to the culture, or the different cultures in Zambia, and compare, could this work in our cultures? Why not? And then you can really bring in, it's so important with our African context to teach pride in being African, and teach pride in our culture. And when we're looking at this Shakespearean Elizabethan time and what they used to do, and we can find ways to bring in what we used to do, or what our norms were, and speak about the value, and really integrate this into our teaching. Geography and climate, that's an easy fit, but such a great opportunity to speak about weather patterns, climate change, and how is this going to impact the farming? How is this going to impact when people are planting their crops? Let's solve, what can people do to change their farming methods? And then civic education and governments, In your class, you can model processes that are quite democratic, where maybe they vote for someone to be the leader of a group, where there's collaboration and discussion in your group works. That's modeling civic education. Gender, you can sometimes have girls being the leaders in the groups. Maybe you can have boys being the leaders. Then you can have girls and boys in different groups. But you're having these open conversations where we're teaching the learners the strengths of each gender, the differences. So as teachers, we can do it. No doubt it seems like a lot of work, but just start somewhere. You have a whole year with your learners. Find a way to pace yourself, include your competencies, include your themes and integrate those themes, because as we've heard from so many speakers, this is the way we are going to address the needs and the challenges of the learners in our class.
Yeah, that was produced about the prevalence of HIV.
Okay, so I can hear some. Please just check that your microphones are muted. There's a bit of feedback coming in. Okay, next thing, and I think for high school teachers, this is really something that's so our biggest challenge. We have those national exams, those international exams, those benchmarking exams. So how do we integrate these? How do we integrate these? Especially now moving on to how do we assess? So all of this is fair and fine, but how do we actually assess all these things? So the older way, OBE, which is what we're moving away from, we focus on end of term exams. Teach. Maybe you'll have a few tests, but for many teachers, they can get away with just a big exam. And that big exam is all that determines the learner and their learning. Then we focus on just recall and reproduction. I teach you a formula, reproduce the formula. There's limited feedback because a lot of the times it's a big exam. Yes, and a lot of the times when you mark exams, it's just ticks and crosses. And then maybe when you're going over the paper, and it's all about passing and failing. So because our focus is this, once learners know that an exam is all about recall, they automatically will realize to win this game, I must memorize. So our approach to assessment is going to motivate the kind of approach our learners are going to have. Because if they're only going to be tested to reproduce, then it is wise for them to only be able to reproduce. So our role now becomes to start to encourage this continuous learning, to encourage this this application of the skills. So if we never test application of skills, learners are not going to prioritize it. So what this means now is continuous varied assessment. So this now means all those activities we're talking about, like your projects, your group work, your oral work, you're going to find ways to integrate that as part of your assessment. So this means, I guess, we're re-equipping ourselves of how do you assess learners from an oral report. It just means you are maybe clear on, maybe I'm testing their critical thinking, maybe I'm testing their collaboration. How do I mark it? Maybe I'll grade them out of 5 for each of them. And then that way I'll be able to put a mark as a total, because that's how our grade books work. So yes, we are going to have to be creative. And yes, we're going to have to collaborate with one another and figure out how do we do this? What are these different ways to assess learners? We give them opportunity to demonstrate the competencies. We're giving them feedback, and we are allowing them to, and we are reminding them it's going to be this idea of continuous assessment. Why it is quite, it's a recommended approach is we focus on growth. We focus on improvement and not just memorize one exam and that's all you're doing. And as you can see with the change from the old way to the new way, we're starting to see that grades from Form 1 and Form 2 and Form 3, those are all going to count, for your Form 4 exams, etc. So all this means is, as educators, we are just going to have to, figure out, how are we going to change the way that we assess our learners. So we want this to be, realistic, to be practical, and but we must accept that there are challenges that we face. But we are not going to just give up. We are going to collaborate. Like, there've been so many wonderful minds, or there are so many wonderful minds in our workshop, and people have been giving great ideas. But this applies within your schools as well, within your communities, that we just start asking each other questions, really. How are you doing it? How are you managing to finish the syllabus and still add this and still add that? My encouragement to you is that there are ways. It sounds like the And those who have this transition will confidently say, you are right, but once you have your systems in place, once you have your activities in place, it starts to just, things will be in place. So all the prep work and all the extra thinking, once you've done your part, you have everything in place to allow you to do this. Once the learners are actually understanding as opposed to memorizing, you're going to spend less time on revision. You're going to spend less time on explaining and explaining. Because like I said, we find in research, they keep telling us people learn more from doing than from just memorizing. So as they are actively involved in the learning of the content, it will better understanding, which will result in just the way they're going to approach questions, etc. The way they're going to be able to remember things is going to be improved. And once learners get used to this idea of active learning, they actually, from research, they say that they start to learn quicker. So as you are speaking, their minds are questioning, their minds are connecting their prior knowledge, their minds are, are connecting the new skills, etc. So initially, be patient with yourself, be patient with your students, but in time, you really are going to find a way to make this more efficient. And people who have transitioned will confidently say, but we're spending less time on revision, we're spending less time, and one of the, the main thing people attest to is that when faced with a slightly different question, the more challenging questions, the learners are able to apply what they know. With most of our exams, that the questions get harder and harder, but they're finding the learners are confidently able to tackle harder questions. So how do you assess all these learners, 60 plus learners continuously? So that is where our conversation about the creative ways, the different activities. We think of, group work, where you get the different groups to do things. And, with group work, to make it quite successful and to make everyone participate, we encourage the learners to maybe have assigned roles. Like, okay, so who will be the leader? Who will be the scribe? Who's writing down what's being said? Who's the timekeeper? Who will present? You want to make sure the group work in your lessons is achieving that which you set out. So you give them nice, clear guidelines. So your group work being one, but there are just so many other different activities which we'll look at. But this has to be done. So we must find, and we will find a ways, and we will have more feedback on this as well, which is, in our large classes, what are the challenges and how are people going around there? But you can apply this. And then, one of the most important things, because this is where we are always judged, and the students, but this is where we're going to be judged, which is these ECZ exams. And yes, exams are going to change. The exams are changing, and this is a global shift. And if you are starting, if you're looking at, the different curricula, you'll realize that the questions are moving away from this direct recall, which can be just memorizing facts, facts, facts. We are developing more and more into apply, into analyze, into what do you think, into in making inferences, making judgments based on what you've learned, being given a completely different set of scenarios compared to what is in the syllabus, because they're now testing the thinking, they're testing the application of the skills. So in the years to come, as the ECZ exams are evolving, this is where they are going. So we need to start equipping our learners now and not before the exam. So if you are integrating this thinking, this approach to your lessons, you are equipping your learners. So once again, there really is no way around it. So what does this look like? Adding more information. for the competencies. So how do you test this critical thinking? How do you test this creativity? How do you test the problem solving? Because you want to also teach competencies, because that's what CBC is all about. We're being intentional about these competencies, and we need to have measures to say from day one up until the end day, how have the learners improved in these areas? So what can you do? You can give the learners written work, essays, reports, some problem solving things in all subjects. Even in maths, they can write a paragraph of problem solving something. Maths is all about numbers, but we are going to be creative. Practical tasks, experiments, lab work, projects, oral assessments, our presentations, our debates. So as they are debating, you have your clear criteria, or as they're discussing, you've got your clear criteria, maybe a checklist, and then you tick checklist, and then you count how many ticks out of 10 a learner was able to achieve. Project extended investigations and research, your portfolios, work over time, observations, your group work, and participation. So I trust, and that's quite something to remember. You are doing a lot of these things already. Very few of you, if any, are starting from scratch. You have been doing these, but now you can be confident to know that you've been doing these. So as we are looking at what's on the screen, it'd be great to hear some examples, especially some English examples and other subjects as well. We haven't heard many of the languages examples, history, geography, chemistry. It'd be great to hear from those teachers as well. So in terms of your subjects, can you think of an activity, an assessment you do for a particular topic? And can you now think about, in terms of the competencies, which one are you actually developing? Which one are you actually developing? So in your subject, think of the assessments you have, the activities you have to assess the learners. Which of these or any other, activities are you doing? And which of the competencies are they developing? So I'll give you a bit of time, and then it'll be great to have feedback. This is probably, this is what teachers want. We need ideas and suggestions. So please, in your subjects, what do you do, and which competency does it develop? Okay, so far I have one hand up. Thank you. Let's just wait for a few more. Thank you. Another hand's gone up. Maybe just one more hand. Okay, thank you. We now have our three, so we'll hear from those three. So we'll start with Clara, and then we will move on to Gift, and then we will move on to Kachama Dixon. So that'll be our order. But in the chat, like I said, there's so many fantastic ideas. Like actually, Somo wrote some great ideas for English. So please keep glancing there. So let's start. Clara, please may you let us know, what do you do?
Hello, I teach English language.
Thank you.
So
Go ahead.
I'm thinking of reading skills. So having had children, for example, read a comprehension, a story in this case, we might ask them to do a play and to work out an activity in a group as a role play, to come up with a play after they have read the text. So when you do that, you're going to build skills such as collaboration, communication, critical thinking, because they would have to see how they can form the story into a dialogue form in order to come up with a play. So that is what I was thinking of, and creativity as well.
Oh,
Thank you.
fantastic. Thank you. And just using that example, I think this will elevate the atmosphere in our class. This will elevate our lessons because, how creative is that? How engaging is that? How motivating is that for learners to want to come to your lesson, to want to listen so that they can participate. So it really will, just change the dynamics in your, lessons. Thank you for that. Gift, your example, please. Gift your example. We'll move on to Kachama. Please, can you give us your example?
Okay, so my example in mathematics could be, for example, if I'm teaching statistics, I want my learners to see the direct application of the three measurements of central tendance, that is mean, mode, and median. So I can give them an activity whereby they can go in each class to collect the data, for example, on shoe size. So they can go in each class, they collect the data, that is the shoe sizes of their colleagues, and then they can present, they can present that data. And then I can ask them, instead of asking them, what is the mean? I will just ask them, on average, which shoe size or did most of the pupils wore? And then again, instead of asking them, what was the common shoe size? What is the mode? I'll just ask them, what is the most common shoe size? That is the mode. And then I'll ask them about the median, which shoe size is on the middle. So that is the direct application of that. And there we can see that there is reporting, that is there's the problem solving, critical thinking, communication as they participate in that survey. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. From your example, I was thinking, if we're bringing in entrepreneurial skills, you can say if you were going to be a shoe manufacturer and you could only manufacture one shoe size as your initial shoe size, which one, based on the information we've received today, which shoe size would you start with? Why? And then, you're getting them to really think about, when you enter this business world, do your homework, do your research, make informed decisions. And, so fantastic example. I'm just going to read some of the wonderful ideas that came from Chisomo on English. So in literature, a teacher can foster critical thinking and improve communication in poetry lessons by asking open-ended questions, encouraging learners to share and defend, I like that, defend their interpretations, and guiding them to analyze poetic devices, such as imagery, tone, and emotions. Does the persona evoke in learners? Then using pair or group discussions helps students explain the ideas clearly, makes them listen to others and builds their confidence. Then connecting poems to real life experiences, promoting creative activities like dramatic readings or rewriting stanzas, and insisting on evidence-based interpretations to deepen understanding. By modeling how to think aloud and question a poem's meaning, the teacher helps the learners develop analytical skills, emotional intelligence, and effective communication. So fantastic ideas there. And then how group work will enhance communication. It empowers learners to have critical thinking, especially when they analyze the other people's presentations. So I really like that idea of open-ended questions. So we want to be moving where there's learners a yes or no question. A learner can guess. But when you ask them why, how, then they're forced to link prior learning, link other subjects, and then they really are deepening their understanding. So, and I love this idea of when there is group work, then you ask other groups to come up with one question to challenge, one question to maybe support, to enhance what they've said. So all these creative ways can really help. Lloyd, I saw your hand was up. Would you still want to contribute?
Please.
Okay. Thank you, Lloyd. Go ahead.
Right?
Yes, we can hear you now. Please give us your contribution. Sorry, Lloyd, I can't seem to hear you.
A task, for instance, after
So Lloyd, I'm not sure if it's just me, but I cannot hear you. Can everyone else, can you hear Lloyd?
No, I can't.
No,
hear
unfortunately, I
Lloyd either.
can't hear her. Can't hear him either, unfortunately.
Lloyd, thank you for wanting to contribute, but we can't hear you. So I would encourage you to please just type your contribution because we are looking for ideas. So thank you very much. Then the last one, I think Austin wanted to contribute as well. Please, may we have your contribution?
All right, thank you very much. Teaching a lesson on communication skills, that's on a tertiary level, but using the same competence based. Instead of working on the communication cycle in a theoretical way, I had to set a meeting where students set an actual meeting. They prepare an agenda, and one chairs, others appointed to be writing minutes, others observing on the time. And they ask questions, follow that agenda. And through that, they're able to collaborate, they're able to read even the nonverbal communication and also answer questions and give feedback. And in that, ends up developing the critical thinking, the communication, and also they understand what it really means by communication being a circle. Thank you.
Thank you. Fantastic. And that's something applied in so many numerous subjects. So once again, this can be done. You have been doing it, and that's why we shouldn't be overwhelmed. Changing our small steps, and it really can be done. Now, other common questions are, how do I track this? So as I was explaining before, having coming with a rubric of sorts, coming up with are the markers that are going to show you that people are collaborating. And maybe you can rate the collaborating out of 5. And then you can then be able to give a total out of, let's say, 20 if you're testing 4 things. So we just have to be creative with coming up with, what will show us these competencies. And you have your continuous assessment over time, so you can see the growth and the progress. So that might mean in a term, maybe 2 to 3, including some assessments of these competencies to see, are the learners developing, maybe just 2 to 3 activities where you intentionally record the marks for that. And then with your large classes, integrating your group work, you will be able to successfully, that's just one way, integrating group work, integrating pair work, integrating your think, pair, share, and then, planning lessons where maybe you might need to go outside a bit. But I trust, and people in your department, you'll be able to come up with a solution that works for you. Even if the resources are limited, there will be ways around it. And if you think of many of the examples we have heard today, there was no extra resource involved. It really was just the questioning. It was the activity, which, granted, with a bigger class, it might take longer to get through everything, or you might need groups, etc. But like I said, there are ways around it. And then even your learners can learn to assess themselves, which is part of those higher order, capabilities, which is, you've learned something. Can you identify it when someone is doing it? In English, you've learned adjectives. Can you identify them when someone is using them? So you are able to actually equip the learners to assess, which can maybe help you with things as well. So, as people are presenting, the other learners have a rubric of sorts, and they are assessing, the things they can assess. So you're combining everything we've said, the different activities, and you'll be able to hopefully come up with something that's practical for. So just for you to think of, when it comes to the assessment methods, so I'll put them up on the, here are some of assessment methods. So I'd like to encourage you to try something new. So maybe every 2 weeks, every week, try something new. Maybe a topic that maybe the kids don't like, a topic you struggle to teach. So think of some of the examples we have heard that have been shared. Think of a topic that you teach. As I'm speaking, or as I was speaking, as others were contributing, was there any assessment method that you're now thinking, I think I want to try this for maybe when I'm doing my group work, I am going to get the other groups to analyze what other people are doing, or I'm going to test certain skills orally. Can I just have a few comments in the chat? In terms of assessment methods, is there any topic? Is there any method that you can commit to trying? Think about it. And if I can have a few suggestions in the chat, any of these assessment methods really inspire you? Something new. In the chat, I'm seeing for English, making the topic of adverts to actually get the learners to make adverts, which will be a way to incorporate creativity, communication, and critical thinking, and how fun. So instead of just the usual of writing an advert, they can just create it, and from some of the your criteria, you'll be able to see have they understood the conventions of an advert. And then they can apply it to real life. So thank you. A great suggestion there on an advert. Instead of just teaching it, make it something practical. So any other subjects? Is there any other assessment methods? So giving learners projects. Luni suggested giving learners projects, long-term projects. Fantastic, long-term projects. I think on the screen there it spoke about portfolios. They can also compile information. So I encourage you, as we're finishing off, please be adding like a topic and an assessment method that you can use, and then keep looking to see what other people are saying. So all of this needs to then align with your school's, your department's policy. So start having those conversations in your department about how are you going to now meet the requirements of this school-based assessment, SBA, especially because you are going to have to work together. The Form 1 teacher, the Form 2 teacher, the Form 3 teacher, your marks are all going to work together to make up the 30% of the Form 4 examination. So this is encouraging this idea of continuously assessing the learners and of hopefully recording the growth and the progress a learner has made. So you are going to need to assess in all subjects continuously throughout the year. Use multiple methods. So you determine your SBA, your school-based assessment, you determine it as a department, work together to see how you can assess the learners, where it's not just written tests, and you're the one who designs the assignment. But with this, your schools will come together, and you can have that guidance of what this means for you moving forward. But now we've sparked that idea that things are going to have to change with the assessment. So now I've got great news for you, which is you are not alone in this journey. There is support. The support that I'm going to be telling you is on the Cambridge. This is a resource specifically for the Zambian context, for the curriculum framework. Wonderful resources, wonderful to look at. The Cambridge Standard, where they really develop the learner as a whole. So some of the examples. And these books, these resources, there'll be the teacher guides, there'll be the learner's book. Sometimes someone who doesn't always know how to use the Cambridge resources, they'll maybe just pick up a random resource and think, there isn't much in here, but it's because they are designed to work together, in harmony. There's supposed to be the teacher's guide. So, with your teacher's guide, which we will look at, it gives you very specific information and it shows you what you need to do, but we will have a look at that. So here's an example on the screen of these resources, which are still, they have been developed, just waiting for that CDC approval. And then we hope this approval comes soon, and then you'll be able to on these resources. But we're letting you know about these so that you can start having this conversation, with people in your school about exploring these resources, so you can see what they offer. But like I said, the benefit is they are designed for the Zambian, market, which is like, how often is that? We're so used to getting books with examples from all over the place, but this one, it has Zambian context, so relatable, and examples that our African learners can relate to, and then it has the key competencies, it has the themes integrated for you. So this is the big issue, which is we are quite reluctant or hesitant because of all the work and all the planning. So this is the solution, which is these K-books that are heavy lifting for you. So, it has these in the various subjects. So when you see Prosper, Cambridge Prosper, this is the resource you should be running. At least have a look at it. Then you have the maths, so Form 1, Form 2. These are just examples, just hopefully see them when they, you'll be able to recognize them. At the moment, there are people around, and they'll be showing school samples, etc., and giving you more information on these. But like, wow. So if I just take a step back, so language and literature, there are resources there for you. Maths, there for you, the different forms. Social sciences, so religious education, geography, civic education, and these are some of the covers for the different forms. Moving on to the natural sciences, your physics, chemistry, biology, these resources are there. Then your agriculture, agricultural science, these resources are there. So, you will have access to have a look at these catalogs to see which, is your subject there. But it's such a great resource for you to, at the least, have it, and then you can decide. Then for business and finance, you have your commerce and principles of accounts, another really good looking, great resource. Technology teachers, so often, ICT, sometimes your resources are lacking, or you aren't easily available, but here you go. You now have an ICT resource, so up to date with all the information to equip this 21st century learner. This, and these resources were really built around these 2030, these goals, these development goals. So it really will be great. So what you'll be getting is the first, which is the learners. So this is what the learners get to keep, and that's what it is allowed with the, it's a although that gets the one that applied to you. Like, how nice is that? Then competency-based activities. So real life learning and the 4 C's are in there. Clear language that learners who are still developing, their knowledge of English, they have been designed with every learner in mind. The examples are age appropriate, and the language is accessible to all learners. Culturally relevant, which makes it easy to then branch off into our themes, because it speaks about the culture. Built-in assessments, so you're actually able to. So once again, how nice, they've done the thinking for us. Built-in assessment out the resource. So if you were to start from day one and then just use the book, so maybe in your first year as you're figuring this out, just follow that resource and you'll be able to have all the marks that you need to get those 21st century skills. Like I mentioned, the critical thinking, the collaboration, the creativity, it's ingrained, it's there. So in your teacher's guide, it really gives you guidance on how you're going to facilitate the conversation for all your different topics and for all the different competencies. I think that's quite key, that it isn't just focusing on the, the content, but it's also guiding you on how to integrate the competencies, how to integrate and develop the competencies and the themes. There's step-by-step instructions, including lesson plans. Isn't that amazing? That there are plans for all of the lessons and teaching guidelines. Then you also have answers. How annoying is that when you get a resource, you get a textbook, and then you give the activity, now you want to mark it, now you don't know where to get the answers. So problem solved, not much thinking on your part. Then it covers the syllabus, and it even has a table that allows you to be ticking and tracking what you've done, what needs to be done. And then you'll be able to take note of where the learner struggled, and you can make that mental note. And then, key is our learners are individual learning, making time to assist and support the different needs of the learners is so vital. And marketing schemes is all in there. So I doubt there's anything on the market that can, even match, it's amazing. It supports you. So it does the heavy lifting of you and shows you and guides you on what CBC is all about. So you can focus on the teaching and, everything is right there. So to conclude, CBC is focusing on skills application, not just knowledge. You develop the 4 C's in every lesson. So these are the key ones. There are 12, but these are the key ones. You integrate those cross-cutting themes naturally over the term, over the year. You include the conversations, the extra questions, the extensions, using your multiple assessment methods, which are all there in the resources, if you use those resources. And then Cambridge Prosper provides complete support. Okay, so it's, all these resources are there, are close to being on the market. Like I said, we're just waiting for the final get-go. But in the meantime, you can also go onto, Cambridge Go, which is a fantastic resource from Cambridge that has all these free resources for teachers to be able to use and to, to be guided on all the different things. And then you're able to just access just, online information. So, while you wait for, all the other information on the next steps to do with Prosper, we encourage you to find out about it, and to just be a part of this Cambridge mailing list. They really have so many different ways. Even once these resources come out, there'll be so much support from Cambridge as well. So I really do encourage you to go on Cambridge Go, and when the emails from us come to you, just read through them and engage with all the different things that are going to be coming from us to you. So before we end, example of one of the resources of Cambridge Prosper, and then at the same time, if there are any questions, please put them in the chat. Any questions, please put them in the chat, and then one or two of you, I'd really love to hear just any key takeaways from you. In the chat, there'll be information. I think we'll put information on Cambridge Go, or we'll communicate that information to you as well. So just in the chat, any questions, and then as well as any key takeaways from anyone, that would be great. There are a few hands coming up, so we have about 2 minutes left. I'll just ask you to be quick with your questions or brief with your responses. So either a question or any key takeaway that you can encourage everyone else. Mercy, is your hand up? Please, can you go ahead?
Thank you very much. I just want to appreciate the presentation. We've learned a lot. I myself have learned a lot with the team that I'm with.
Thank you.
And I also want to appreciate Mr. Kaumba Chidila, who came through Luapula province to distribute those materials. I think we are also having a chance to go through what is being supplied by Cambridge University Press. But my request is this presentation going to be shared? And also, is there any possible way that you can organize at least a physical meeting? Because most of the people failed to join because of network issues. A physical meeting, maybe in Luapula, where we organize and then you meet us physically. Thank you.
Thank you. Your this workshop everything will be emailed to you, and then your request has been noted, and I'm sure communication will come through. Thank you so much for your feedback, Mercia, and for joining us. We really appreciate it. Any other questions, Richard? What did you want to say? So as these people, as we have our contributors, I'll also just be sharing on the screen. You can see the Maths Prosper. So please go ahead, Richard.
Well, actually, I just wanted to appreciate you for the meeting and the organizers. Is there any other? Yes, and the other thing is what the previous speaker has just mentioned of sharing the presentation so that we can be going through on time. Yes, I think that's what I want to.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Maybe just one more. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. Just one more contribution. Anyone burning to contribute? Luni, I think you have a contribution. And then gifts as quickly as we can.
Okay, thank you so much. I just want to appreciate, I've really learned a lot. Last time I joined the primary section for the same online, but I joined late. And this time, at least I've learned a lot. And I just want to appreciate, there was Mr. Kaumba who also passed through Western Province, and all the districts have been covered. And particularly like Kalabo, where I am, people are looking forward to those books. That's why last time I asked when you bring those books so that teachers can buy. So they are busy asking, and they are aware of Prosper. So thank you so much. And I'm also looking forward for the same presentations so that I can be able to share in our CPT groups. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And Gift, we must hear from you since you were so generous with your contribution. So to end off, Gift, please just finish off.
Thank you so much. Representing Eastern Province, I'm so happy to be in attendance, and thank you so much for 48 participants who are there. And we also wish, I've heard from other provinces that you pass through as Prosper. We also wish that one day you also pass through Eastern Province. Then to the attendees, I don't know, allowed outside Prosper that we can have a WhatsApp group where we support each other. There can be another presentation that I attended for ECZ on how the questions that are going to be assessed theoretically, how they should be across all the subjects. So maybe we can drop numbers and then we create a WhatsApp group where we can also continue with these CPDs. As small as we are, we can still make a lot of changes in the CBC curriculum. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Maybe with the numbers, if you just don't put them here for now, I'm sure we'll find a way to assist you. But I think for now on our chat, if we, for now, but Gift, a great contribution, which is for people to collaborate. Thank you. Many hands are coming up, but we aren't really able right now to have every hand, but we really appreciate all of you attending. I just wanted to show you this wonderful resource. And if you look towards the bottom of the screen, in case you think I was making things up, it says the cross-cutting issues are included, which promote the Zambian national values. So everything that I was talking about is in these resources. So thank you so much for joining us. Just to end off, Ingrid will just conclude our session, but thank you all for joining us, and more information will come. Ingrid, handing it over to you.
Let me get my mic on. Thank you so much, Tito. It has been such a wonderful presentation, and you've been engaging, you've been informative. At no point was anything that you said unnecessary. It was all really, really wonderful, and in particular how you got the group chatting. And so I want to extend my thanks as well to everyone who attended and spoke up and shared in the chat. You made the session what it was. Yes, we will share the slides. You will also be sent a recording of this webinar, and then you can also access it and share it with your colleagues on our YouTube channel. I love the suggestions about the WhatsApp group. We will definitely keep you posted as well on that. We'd be very happy to facilitate that as far as we can. So once again, thank you so much, everyone. Yes, and I look forward to working with you all when the new books become available. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to be ending the event, but you're welcome to reach out at any time.
Thank you. It was a nice presentation.
Thank you so much.